Today we're shooting Anatomy of a Hustler, and today we get to interview one of my really good friends. When he first introduced me, it was Prince, but he goes by Kuks Singh, and today we get to go through kind of like his evolution of his hustle. So welcome, Kuks.
Well, thanks for having me.
So when I met you, you had a co-working space, and that's how I knew you. It was the guy who owned the co-working space, and the way people introduce you is like, he's a little bit eccentric. That's how they would describe you. But when I met you, I realized that you were creative, you're brilliant, and that most people weren't going to understand like your thought process. But can you tell us today, like, how would you describe what you do?
That's a good question, right? But thanks for saying that I'm brilliant, because, like, you know, not many people say that. You don't get that every day when people say that you're brilliant. But you know, to be honest, it's a question that a lot of people have asked. And you know, what I do is I'm an opportunist, right? And it's like every time I see an opportunity, like I put myself in a position where there's opportunities that are just continuously coming to my doorstep. So, you know, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And I'll explain the bad thing first, is that when you're in a position where there's so many opportunities on the table, then it's hard to dip your feet in all of them, right? And if you do, then you kind of get distracted, right? And that's probably been like one of my main distractions, is the amount of opportunities that come to the table. Because there's, you know, my background's in real estate, my background in creativity and consulting and whatnot. So I've always put myself in a position where I could be the guy where people could come to, where they're telling me about their ideas, right? And like, if you're that guy, like somebody said something to me actually, that a good businessman is a good middleman. So I thought to myself, all right, it'd be good to put yourself in that position where you're a middleman, and instead of getting like these big jobs, you're kind of more going for quantity, right? Like, imagine if you were making $400, but you made that 400 times in a year,
right? Then,
you know, the quantity is gonna make more sense, because the amount of effort that you're putting in it, especially when you're doing so many other things. So every time each opportunity comes, and if I'm invested in every opportunity, like, the downside is that, you know, it's hard to allocate time for each and every project.
Sure.
So I kind of look at each project and think, all right, what's the quick way scheme, right? And in England, there's a show, it's called Only Fools and Horses, and there's a guy there called Del Boy. And Del Boy, his wheeling and dealing was like, all right, how'd you make the quick money? How'd you make the quick money? And that's what he was basically doing. So I kind of, because I grew up watching that, it's kind of in me, like, all right, the Del Boy attitude is like, how do you make quick money in here, quick money in there, quick money in there, and make that money? Because when you got quantity, it adds up. But essentially, you're invested in each and every project, so there's potential of that growing to be something amazing, right?
Sure.
And don't get me wrong, not all of them do, right? It's probably like a 90% rate that where they're all just gonna, you make your quick money and come out, move on to the next one. So, I mean, that's the con. The good thing about it is that you're in an opportunity to be in everything, right? And you get to see like what the markets are and how different everything is. So me being a little bit older, right? You know, 4 decades, you know, so it's kind of
still surprising.
It's
to
kind
both
of
of
like,
us.
you know, it's, don't get me wrong, I'm getting old, it's inevitable, I can't change that. But one thing for me is the knowledge is power, right? And the times as well, what I've seen the times come into, and you know, the times that we're in now is just like amazing, right? In terms of what you can do and how quickly you could get out there and do your thing, right? So to be in a position to hear everybody's idea throughout these different generations, for me, it's been magical, right? Is to hear what everybody's doing. So that's what I am. Like, I'm that person where I want to hear what you do, and if I like it, then I can kind of either invest or help consult, but kind of know what's going on with the trends in today's like world, basically.
And help bring them to
Yeah,
life.
sorry, that was a bit of a long answer, but
no.
you know,
That's a great way to say that you do a lot of things, right?
Yeah, and I do. Don't get me wrong. It's like there's things that I focus on that I absolutely love, which is photography. Like that's changed like my life completely, right? And I've earned a lot of my income from that, and figuring out how to maintain that, and like how to look at it from a different perspective, like work backwards and think of the business element as opposed to the creativity side of things. Don't get me wrong, I'm a creative dude, you know, like I love being creative, but you know, at the end of the day, you got to eat, you got to make money, right? And it's like, how do you stack up these P's, right? And you do that by figuring out, you know, the business element of every single project. And that's, photography for me has just been like amazing. Like, it's just been crazy, like in terms of what I can say I've done in terms of photography and how much money I've made in photography.
Sure.
I spend a lot, don't get me wrong, so we should be saving, but like at the end of the day, it's, you know, you wanna enjoy life too. So I spent a lot of money, you know, from that money that I made.
Sure.
But
sure.
like I said, I think today's world is a little bit different in terms of teaching people how to invest and stuff like that. If I could change that, then I would have made that money and invested a little bit, you know, a little bit more wisely.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. I mean, I have a background in photography, and that's kind of what spawned the entrepreneurial ventures that I ended up in. And I would say trying to find that balance between art and pricing it appropriately is incredibly difficult. So could you elaborate a little bit more as to like what led you down that path? How'd you learn some of these things? How you kind of reverse engineered, and basically how you took photography and what you were learning in that respect, had an appropriate price, and then how that led you down that path.
Yeah, because everyone wants to be a photographer, right? Everyone's a photographer these days, and you've probably seen the rise of like people who have an iPhone and Instagram. Everyone says they're a photographer, but I know you had to build your business a different way than people are building their business now. So will you like go back into like how that started?
So, I mean, it's a good question, but it's, you know, it can end up being a long story response, right? And it's like, you know, to kind of cut it down, it's fun. Like how I started photography was crazy. It was my friends were coming from England to visit me, and I rented a car out, and in the car that I got, for some reason, there was a digital camera in the wow. You know, in the, I don't know what they call it, but the middle compartment, the armrest compartment, right? Sure. And I was like, well, you know, this is a bit strange. So I like instantaneously knew that somebody who rented it before got it, right? Left it in there, sorry, right? I mean, I just saw it like as an opportunity, like, all right, like, you know, and at that time, which was about 2002, 2003, like digital cameras were the shit, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like you had to, you get me? So, and it was big. It was like a Big Mac, like the size of a Big Mac. That's what it was, right? And I thought to myself, oh, my friends are coming, like, because phones back then didn't have, if they did have cameras, they were garbage, right? So it was like, you know, I had the opportunity to do that. So I just started taking pictures, and the way I was taking pictures, you know, like now when I look at it, it was rubbish. But at that point, it kind of buffed me up. Like, oh my God, I'm actually a good photographer. I should be a photographer.
Oh yeah, that was the MySpace days.
Yeah,
so
do you know what I mean?
any talent was gonna shine.
So, anyways, I got the camera. I started taking pictures of when they came down, and then I started looking at the pictures, and I thought, oh, you know, these are not too bad. And you know, I'm getting pumped up by these guys. Like, oh man, that's a good picture. That's a good picture. At that time, it was like I said, a big buzz. So when I did that kind of like that camera, I had it with me everywhere. Yeah. So, you know, like, I didn't give it back. I should have given it back. But, you know, I thought, you know, I'm a hustler. That's there for a reason, so I took it.
You pay it forward in a lot of the community that you involve yourself in.
So whoever owned that camera, you can point to the look at the camera and say thank you.
Camera, thank you for that. Like, even if, you know, I could go back, I still wouldn't give it back. You know, like, I would keep it. So, like, having that camera just changed it. I started taking pictures everywhere because I was like the only dude with a camera. Sure. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I wasn't doing it for people. I wasn't taking jobs and stuff. I just went there and I just started taking random pictures. And it's great because now I have that content from 20 years ago that from that camera, right, that I took this picture, that picture of like just mates and friends and stuff like that. Right?
So how do you transition from the guy who's taking pictures of his friends to the guy, I know you've told me this before, charging $1,000 a headshot?
So like I said, that camera led me to just get interested. And then there was a stage where I was leaving America to go back to England. And then I had about $1,200 in my pocket. And I was in New York, and there's a big camera store there called B&H Photo. And like I went into the store because I was like, it knows everything about cameras. And I said I kind of knew which one I wanted. I told him it was the Sony F828 or 282 or something like that. And it was the one, I mean, it was just crazy. I was like, all right, that's the one I'm considering. And I said, listen, mate, I've got like $1,200, $1,300 in my pocket. Yeah. This is the one I want, yeah? Can you recommend a better one, or is this the one, right? And he said, that's a good one. So I bought it. And when I bought it, I started taking pictures on it. And then it was a complete different level compared to that shitty one that I found in the car, right? But, you know, it changed the game for me. I was like, man, this is amazing. And it wasn't a semi DSLR or a pro DSLR. It was just something before that. That led me to buy a DSLR. And then I was like, man, you know, my pictures started changing. Like I started taking better lenses, better camera. And then I thought, you know what?
Was it just the confidence, or did your quality of work improve? Is a little bit of both? What do you think that was?
Like it was, I think confidence definitely, because I'm a confident person, right? You know, I attack everything with confidence, and my responses are straight away, and et cetera, et cetera. But I do feel that I started looking at the business element of it, because our family business is real estate. So I'm like, why am I going to chase this when there's something kind of just set out for me, right? So I started looking at it and I thought, all right, how do you make money from this? And that's what kind of got me going, and like, all right, let me just go out there and allocate X amount of time to do free photography, right? But let me get the people that are at that time influencers, right? Which there wasn't no Instagram or anything like that. It was just people, hey, yeah, that's the guy, you know what I mean? And then you go and kind of hit him up or hit her up or whatever. So I just attacked that like that. And then when I did that, it just changed the game for me. Like I started doing all of this content, and this content was just amazing. They loved it, and then word of mouth got around. This is the guy to use and shoot, and you know, I kind of tackled the Indian music industry at that time and some bridal side of things and whatnot, and then it just changed. And that's before I got into the wedding photography side of things. So, you know, that is the original story of how I got into photography.
Gotcha.
You know, and then from that, it just evolved like astronomically, like crazy.
I know me personally, I had a really hard time making that transition from free photographer to being able to confidently charge really anything. So was there like a moment that you were like, okay, I've done the legwork, I've proven myself enough, now's the time that I can attach a price tag and confidently stand behind that?
So 100%, like you've got to kind of put a timeline out there. Like I wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to be this guy that's shooting free stuff. I said, all right, I'm just going to do targeted elements. Like who do I want to approach at that time, right? And like I said, there was no Instagram where I could DM anybody. I would have to physically go there and charm them with, you know, like
your British charm.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But keep in mind, I was in England at that
You're
time.
in England, okay, so British charm doesn't work in England.
They were like, yeah, no, get out of here with that British charm. But what I'm saying, it was more just like the energy. I think when you come to that, like, don't get me wrong, I do have like, and I've seen this, so I'm saying this out of experience, I do have a slight advantage being British in America, right? Because it's different, everyone loves different, and the way I approach things are differently. But, you know, in England, that's not there, right? If an American was there, then, all right, hey, this is a different guy, he's an American guy, what is he doing here? Let's invest in him, right? But if that's not the case, then you've got to kind of show some other aspect or some other element of, you know, where they're going to book you. And that was the energy, right? Like, oh my God, this guy's got a lot of energy for this. Like, you know, he's really excited about it. And I was, but in the back of my head, I did say to myself, 3 to 6 months or 9 months max, then I'm done, right? And then now I have to start making money. I have to try and figure out how to charge for this, you know? And that's why, you know, now when I mentor people or tell them or give them consulting, I tell them straight away what's good in photography and what's not. Like, you want to chase the fame, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Because there's only a small fraction of people that actually do that. You know, these fashion photographers, it's very small, the percentage. Not everyone's going to be able to do that. But are they going to get clients for it? Yeah, they're going to shoot, but they're not going to get the Gucci's and the Chanel's and all of this stuff. That's a complete different market. Do you know what I mean? So figure out how you make money from it. And it's evolved throughout the years, especially with Amazon. You know, product photography is huge now. You know, it's just crazy. And currently right now, food photography is like huge. So like, to answer your question, I gave it 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And then I was like, that's it.
I think that's what differentiates you from like most creatives. Like, there's a lot of people who are creative and have talent, but they never see like the success you did because they didn't do 2 things, which is 1, you put a timeline on it. You're like, by 9 months, I'm gonna start charging. And 2, you're like, my main goal is to make money off of it. Sometimes we kind of waffle between like, this is my passion, but you knew that you were taking your passion and like trying to translate it into funds and didn't attach your ego to it, which is something that people have to learn. I mean, I think we're all still learning that a little bit. Is like my value is not attached to my ego. The amount I charge is not attached to my value.
Yeah, like you have to get rid of ego. Like, don't get me wrong. Some of the jobs I did, like, I'm not saying people talk to me bad because I would have just walked away, to be honest, right? But like, you can see the ego in people when it comes to certain shoots. Like when you're shooting for the music industry, let's say, or you're shooting for like a magazine cover, right? Like there's a lot of people that have a lot of egos. But when you're shooting for commercial work, right, where you're shooting for a company, right, it's completely different because they like you, they know what you want, and you're getting it. There's a lot of cha-ching, right? Whereas less headache. So I tell everybody, look for things that are just less headache. Unless you're like the next like Facebook, right, which you're not going to be. But you know, if there is a chance that you are, and it's the same thing, it's a very small percentage that are going to be that next big thing. So if it's that and it's worth it, then yeah, go for it. But you know, everyone's just got to wake up a little bit and just be like, what's more realistic with what's on the table right now, and make the best that you have with that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And
So-
it's incredibly nerve-wracking when you do finally send that quote or send that price out and you're like waiting for the response.
But why? It shouldn't be nerve-wracking,
I think
right?
you guys have two different philosophies,
Right.
because I know
It
him.
shouldn't-
He
like-
throws money out there like, this is my price, $1,000.
Totally.
So, you know, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not, I'm just saying.
You're not
what's-
cocky.
No.
You
This
know
is
ego.
I'm just saying
incredibly
what's
valuable.
what's best for me,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
What the type of person I am and what I want to do. So the way I see it is when you're trying to get a gig, like obviously you can't be stupid and be like, hey, I'm charging 100 grand for this, like, you know, $2,000 shoot, right? But you know, you can be, you know, if you feel and you're confident that your photography is great, right? Right? Well, first of all, actually, let me go back. Like, I don't think there is like the best image, right? I heard something that says you don't have to be the best, you just got to be better than last week. So same thing, you don't have to have the best image, just make sure it's better than the last image, right? And then so forth, and then you kind of learn and become better at what you do, right? I don't believe practice makes perfect. Practice makes improvement, right? And you're always striving to be better and better and better and better. But you know, to be the best, you know, that you just get that out of your head. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be the best, and if you are, it's that small percentage, and now you're competing with like amazing other people, right? And it's just like, what is the point in that? What are you trying to get out of that? If you don't see, you know, like financial success from that, then what's the point? You know what I mean? You've got a better chance of chasing the other way and actually, you know, kind of like doing that. So, you know, going back to what you said is, for me, is that you should know your worth, right? And if you're good, right?
Easier said than
And
done, right?
yeah, but you know, it's like, because it's different. You got to see that way, an opportunity to say to somebody that, all right, if you think that you're a $200 an hour photographer, then like if the job's like 5 hours, then add that by 5, it's 1,000, right? Now, what you're gonna do now? You're gonna edit these images. If you are, then it's gonna take the same time as that you've been using to shoot. So you should be charging another 5 hours if it's 5 hours of editing. So that's another $1,000. So you should be adding $2,000 for that gig, right? Where they're like, you know, oh, I only want to spend 500. So like, then it comes down to, you know, are you just a photographer, or you want to educate them on having the right service, right? And for me, it's like, well, hold on, what are you trying to do first? And then they explain. Then I'm like, well, listen, have you thought about this and this and this and this? And then when you start explaining all the other elements to them, they're like, holy shit, this guy's right. Like, you know, I do need this, you know, so because you're going to add it all up and do that. So, you know, I'm great at editing. I'm like really good, right? But I'm done with editing, right? Yeah. I'm so done with editing. Like, I'll do it, but I'm charging 5x compared to what everybody else is charging, because my value for my time is, I don't want to be sitting there working on somebody's like image, right? Because I'm not really chasing that. I'd rather chase the in and out. I mean, that's what I'm doing now. So what I'm saying before was completely different. I built up to this, but I kind of built up to it learning. Now I know what I need to do and how valuable my time is, right? Because, you know, people book photographers for events, let's say, and then you're just sitting there like Muppets, right? Because the event's like, you're just waiting for the event. So you know, I tell them, don't get me there for that. When is the event going to start? Because I'm going to charge you from this time to this time, right? And anything above that is going to be X amount. It's in the contract. But instead of being like this, you know, having an ego, like, hey, I'll charge extra if it's going to go over. If it goes over half an hour, 40 minutes, sometimes I don't even care, right? I'm like, all right, cool. But if it's like an hour onwards, then, like, you know, I do educate him before that, hey, I just want to confirm that you know that this is what it is. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but, you know, I charge for my time, right? And I'll get you everything you need in that time, right?
Absolutely.
But, you know, just trust in the process and just be a little bit assertive in, like, the itinerary, right? And just make sure everything's on time, or just have me there for that time. So, you know, I know that, you know, I keep going back to it, is the value of your time. That is the most important thing, because when you start looking at it on that aspect, then the mindset changes on how much you should be charging, what you should be doing.
Absolutely. I mean, you just spoke on so many things that I could unpack, so many things. But I'm going to rewind it a little bit back to give a little bit of context for anyone that doesn't know you. And I had the experience of meeting you in relationship to your company and the people you were working with were actually pitched another company that I was with at the time. And I remember that some of the people that were involved were providing service essentially to say, like, look, this is what we're capable of, come to the table, we can all flourish together. And I remember you coming in and confidently having a price in mind, and you didn't blink. And I think that that's something that a lot of creatives struggle with, because we get so attached to our art, and we get so attached to what we do, as if this is this thing that needs to be like babied all the way into existence, when in reality, if you can confidently deliver that and be willing to also step away and say, maybe this isn't the right time for us to be doing business together, that really resonated with me. And honestly, I took it into the development of my own agency in a way that now I can confidently stand behind my pricing. And yeah, if it doesn't work out, like, it kind of hurts sometimes, because we do a lot of that legwork to educate, right? Yeah. Communicate. Educating and communicating is so much of what it is, but now it doesn't really ring the same way it did when I was chasing down those cheap jobs, to where it was like, oh, darn, they don't realize my wealth, or excuse me, they're my worth and wealth. Yeah, that's twofold. But I don't really take it personal anymore, because I didn't have the confidence to really stand behind a price point the way that I should have. So everything you're saying, there, like I said, there's so much I can unpack, but that really stood out to me as, like, yes, more creatives need to understand that. They need to try to bring that into their 100%. Own approach.
And it comes down to your confidence too, right? Like, because what type of photographer are you? You're going to be a photographer that's just going to do and be silent, or you're trying to make money, right? So, you know, you got to look at what's the value, and whatever that value is that's the effort you got to kind of put in it. Right. And that's the way I've always looked at it, is that, all right, push it the way I want to do it, and go high, and then come back with a response, because at the end of the day, you ain't going to know until you find out, right? So, and when you give an offer, even on a house, they're going to come back to you and say, no, it's not that, this is what the offer is. So always just wait for what the like the counter response is going to be. And, you know, for me anyway, when the work speaks for itself, so 9 out of 10 times, they're like, yeah, like, all right, I've never really had to negotiate, but there are some times when you're like, all right, you know what, I can make a quick $1,000, or I can make a quick $2,000, right? And then you think, all right, if you think quantity, and I've got 4 or 5 of them coming in like 5 days, then why not? Because it's only like a couple of hours of work. So if you look at it that perspective, then, you know, it's all about, like I said, cha-ching, right? You want to just, you just want to see that. You just want to make that, and you feel more confident, you get more boosted. And when you get more boosted, then you're only going to get better, right? If you're not getting better, then there's something wrong with you. You got to look in the mirror and say, hey, look, how do I fix this? You know, and you just got to kind of keep it rolling like that. So, like I said, know your worth, because you don't want to be out there talking to every Tom, Dick and Harry and wasting like 20 minutes chatting to 50 of these guys a day. So if you're like, hey, this is what I do, this is what I charge, go look and see what it is, then, you know, it's all about converting that into a successful conversion. So
you went from like telling us like your photography journey to like actually giving like a mini masterclass and like negotiating. I don't think you're saying it's like confidence, but like for people who are creatives who are trying to like understand what to do, what you're doing, it's like you've actually honed in negotiation skills that takes years, but like confidence was like the launch pad for that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about photography, but you are a photographer right now. You still do photography, but that's not the only hustle you have. beyond photography, like what other things are the things that like pique your interest, or the things that you've seen opportunity in the past, like, I don't know, 3 years, 1 year here now?
So, you know, like I said when I was speaking earlier, when you've got, you know, when you're in a position to be that middleman, right? And you've got all these opportunities coming to the table, and then you can just start cherry picking everything, right? I mean, it's a great position to be in, like, as in terms of,
Right now.
do you know what I mean? Like doing it. But don't get me wrong, like, because when you hear that, then other things kind of come out of that, where you hearing other people's ideas and whatnot, and then you start thinking about, you know, how to make the perfect idea, right? And I think that's always on my mind, is like, how do I make the perfect idea? Not saying that I'm trying to steal other people's ideas or not, but at the end of the day, creativity is actually stolen, to be honest.
Oh, yeah,
right?
nothing's
Or
original, right?
replicated, or copied, or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, the real true original ones, there's very small amount of them, right? So you got to kind of think, what's the best for you? What's the best that you can make out of, you know, in front of you? And a perfect way is MacGyver. I don't know if you know who MacGyver is. So
You're aging yourself a little bit, but I
so,
get the
yeah,
reference.
that's a little bit older, but at the end of the day, the guy was like phenomenal. He would get out of a building or save his life by just finding things around him and getting out of that. So if you look at that same analogy in terms of business and conversion, look at what you have on the table and put the dots together. And if you can't figure it out, find something else in the room to put it together to make it connect, and do that. So, like, my formula is that I look at things like that. So, you know, the stuff that I'm interested in is not just the photography, but real estate it's in my blood. So there's always that middleman aspect of connecting and making the money through connecting the deals, right? Yeah. So, you know, and I feel that negotiating element has helped me just, you know, kind of hustle my way, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, to get where I need to get. Don't get me wrong, my product's banging, right? Yeah. Whatever I'm pitching to them. But at the end of the day, it's like, I've got to come correct if I'm trying to convert. Otherwise, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're just sitting there on your ass doing nothing. Like, you know, you've got all the ability to do it. Somebody said something, actually, somebody said it and then I heard it. And they said to me that if you had $86,400 every day, right? What would you spend it on, right? And it just, every day you would wake up with the same amount. Would you try and spend all that money at the same day? And majority of people said, yeah, like, you know, I'll go crazy, go do this, go do that, go do this. There's 86,400 seconds in a day, right? And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of this, right? Yeah. So, and that just kind of clinged on to me. I was like, you know, it's true. You know, like, if you just allocate X amount of time to focus on stuff, and then that's, I mean, you're gonna go next level, right? And then that's what has made me look at everything. And real estate is definitely something. The photography is definitely something. Clothing is another one, right? Which I was speaking to you earlier about. Yeah. But trying to figure out how to connect things, and crypto, NFTs. This is like, you know, it's a new thing. Like I said, I'm a little bit older, so I've seen crazy stuff. And the fact that we live in a world where this is now available, like, everybody should be making money, right? You know, like, especially creative, especially artists, especially this, but even just in terms of like investing and learning how to fund and how to day trade, for instance, right? And whatnot. Like, people are sitting there making money just by sitting there and just doing something on a computer, you know? So
we're from different generations, but like, I think the one thing that I've learned from you is that you have such an appreciation for the availability to make money right now in this day and age. Right. And a lot of people my age, I'm aging myself, my age or younger, don't have that same appreciation or don't realize how lucky we are to be in this day and age.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, I wouldn't even say, like, for me, like, I would say that everything's about adapting, right? You got to learn how to adapt, right? And the quicker you adapt, the quicker you're going to start seeing shit a little bit more clearly, right? And then you're like, all right, this is what I need to do. This is my timeline, because timeline's very important. If you don't start putting timelines on stuff, then it's just going to keep on going. Like, oh yeah, next day. I was going to make this T-shirt, actually. It said today, right? And like, my whole pitch was like, listen, do that shit today. Do that shit today. You know what I mean? So, like, and it makes sense. Because there is time out there, but, you know, look how much time you spend wasting sitting on fucking Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and all of that, right?
Call everybody out right now, yeah.
Yep, everyone. Like, you know, like, there's a bunch of people here. I bet all of them
call them all out.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to kind of now think, all right, let me spend an hour on Instagram, but and I was actually pitching this to Q here, is that everyone should start like adopting the concept of power hour every day, right? So spend that 1 hour and just going crazy in whatever it is, whether it's the gym, whether it's, you know, day trading, whether it's photography or retouching, whatever. Have this power hour concept and just be done in that hour, right? And then if you start implementing that every day, you're gonna start seeing a difference. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna do this 30-day push-up challenge, right? Yeah. You know, at the end of that 30 days, you're gonna see some difference, right? So, like I said, it's not about being the best. It's just about being better than last week.
Man,
right?
There's so much there I want to unpack and like elaborate and jump in on, but I really would love to know two things.
Yeah.
One, what does your power hour look like? And two, what's your definition of a hustler?
So power hour for me is like let's say gym, for instance. I wake up like 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym, right? And I've just started incorporating this like in November, and like, I've lost like 30 pounds, right? So for me, it's like, you know, pandemic weight or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I did it, right? And then I was like, all right, you know, I mean, prior to that, I was doing my power hour in terms of business. So I might sit there and, you know, if I'm working on a project and I need to come up with a pitch deck, I would just make sure I've done it in that 1 hour, right? Or 80% of it is done. So then when I go back and look at it, I'm just doing tweaks and whatnot, right? Sure. Power hour in terms of photography is like, and like I said, like I'm not trying to be big-headed or nothing, but I'm really good at photography, right? And cinematography. So for me, I look at everything like, how much can I get out on it in that hour? How much can I squeeze out of this sponge, right? In terms of different looks, different concepts, different lighting, different that. That's why everyone loves what I do, because, you know, I will take something and not spend 20 minutes on one, you know, look or one this. I'm trying to get like 2-3 different looks for that. So I'm trying to, in terms of the client conversion, I'm actually trying to give them value for money. And when you start adding that value for money element in what you do, people love that shit all day long, right? And I don't mean to say it in a bad way, they love that shit. I'm just saying it in a nice way that, you know, like I feel happy giving them something that has been value, right?
Oh, yeah, feels good to deliver more than what's expected.
And they love that, right? So that I would say that element, but in what you're asking about a hustler, right, is interesting, right? Like I'll probably have about 5 different answers for that.
Okay.
Right? But you know,
I was gonna say, yeah, pick your top, so we don't run the podcast on
like,
for an
honestly,
hour and a half.
If I get one, it's like I would say, it's a common saying that I say, and you know, like I said, I could explain it quite a way, but if I had to pick one, then I would say the element of you got to risk it to get the biscuit, right? At the end of the day, there's always going to be things to chase, and it's going to change. You could be doing this one day, and next week something else, next month something else. But if you just stick to it and chase that, then you know that biscuit is like valuable, and do whatever you can to get that. So I think, being a hustler, I've always been like that, whether it's been in real estate, whether it's been in photography or the other things that I do, you know, in terms of consulting and helping small businesses and stuff like that. I always want to make sure that there's a biscuit there everywhere, right? And chase that and get it, because once you get it, then it moves on to the next one, right? And you've become successful. So, you know, I don't know if that's the best, you know, meaning for it, but
it's the best because
I've
it's your meaning
50,
for it.
But you know, you putting me on the spot asking me for one. Like what comes in my head right now is that, right?
Yeah.
Which is still the perfect answer.
I feel like that one's more related to the stuff I've been saying, right? Is that don't sit there and waste time, right? Start. What's the word? Is that start planning out. You know, it's true when they say it. I mean, it's a cheesy thing. Hey, man, you got to put your goals up and do this. But at the end, in the real estate world, like I lived in Dubai for about 1.5 years, and it's ruthless in Dubai. Completely crazy, ruthless real estate. I could be chatting to you as a client. I'll walk away. Next agent comes and start chatting to client. Hey, that guy, I'll get it cheaper than him, right? And you're trying to make this commission because it's no tax. So, and these commissions are, you know, when you're selling like $20, $30 million properties or $5 million properties, the commission is ridiculous. So, and tax-free. So, you know, it's everyone's chasing it. So very, very ruthless in the way they do things. So, like, you had to go for it. You know what I mean? Because if you're not going for it, next man or next woman or whatever is going for it. And you've just lost your opportunity. And I think, especially in this time now, things are coming out so much more quicker. You know, and to go back to what you were saying in terms of photography, the technology is just, like, phenomenal right now, right? that a phone can take this, right? So anybody that's taking pictures, if you take 1,000 pictures, one's going to be good or 10's going to be good. Now the mindset of that person can be like, you know what, shit, I'm a photographer. You know what I mean?
Which that's what I'm
really
talking about,
good.
yeah.
And then now you've got these editing software that's putting filters and shit like that on it. So, you know, I don't personally think that's a true photographer. Me, it's like you have to get on to the camera and actually do that. But I'm not trying to hate on the people being creative, because at the end of the day, it comes back to what I'm saying, the MacGyver thing. What tools do you have in front of you? Do you know what I mean? It's just the age I come from, there's nothing better than just, you know, having the whole process and the whole, you know, history of photography. You know what I mean? Like going back to the film day, I love that you only have 26 or 24 and 36 exposure. Yeah. That's
Creates
it.
a different level
you know
of intentionality.
You know,
right?
and somebody actually said something that stuck to me, that actually I'll say it, it said fuck Photoshop, right?
Wait, can you look in the camera?
Right? So fuck Photoshop. And because 30 years ago there was no Photoshop.
Right.
So they had to get everything perfect, lighting, this, and this. So I get it, times are changing, new things are coming out, but you have to appreciate what's like old. Old is gold, right? Sure. So learn that and just adapt your way, the way you want to adapt is what I personally think.
Before we close out, there was something that you said to me earlier about defining who you are right now. Like, you've gone through all these hustles, you've had these evolutions of what you're doing, and kind of like refined how you approach business and how you approach your hustles. But you said something to me earlier today, and you didn't say it on camera, but I want you to say it right now. It's like who you are as a hustler, you defined yourself as.
You know, I class myself as an artist, and I always knew I was an artist, right? But now I know, you know what, I'm a really good artist, right? And, you know, I want to start showcasing everything that I'm doing, right? So I said to myself, you know what, if people ask me, what do I do? I'm just going to straight up out of the bowl and say, hey, listen, I'm actually an artist, right? Or creative artist, or whatever you want to call it. You call it some fancy name or whatever you want. But at the end of the day, I create shit, right? And I create stuff that's just like, you know, to me now, after so many years, that I think is just like amazing, right? That I would actually purchase that myself, or, you know, wear that item of clothing that has my image on it or whatnot, you know? So I think the minute that you start feeling confident and appreciative about yourself and your brand,
Yeah.
then you can do whatever you want. And to be honest, when I first came here, I didn't really know anyone.
You mean come to the States?
Like when I came to the States, yeah, I didn't really know anyone. This is like 99, 2000. And yeah, and then, yeah, and then I was like, you know, like I started I don't have any mates or any friends. I'll go mate for them, but I started going out. And when I started going out, I was like, you know what, I actually really enjoy my company, right? Which sounds a bit weird, but at the end of the day,
it should be way more normalized.
Like, I think if you can enjoy your own company, you could do anything else, anything you want in the world.
Absolutely.
You don't need anybody, right? So if you start having that mindset, you know, and it's not something that you just snap your fingers and do it. Like, you really have to go out there and just go out by yourself and, you know, not get bored, right? And actually enjoy yourself and have a good day where you didn't need to go call your mate, right? Or call your girlfriend or call whoever, right? Like, and when that started happening, then everything changed for me. That was only for a little while, but because I understood it straight away, I started knowing everyone. Yeah, when I was here, and it was just crazy the amount of people I know, and that was great because that's the way my attitude is and my personality. I want to know what you're all about, you know, and I'll tell you what I'm all about. If we can connect, we connect. Right. You know, don't be shy to say hello, right? Right. So, and as a matter of fact, not hello, but what do you do? You know, because then you're going to see how you can connect. Everything's about conversions. Everything's about connecting the dots. Right. If you start connecting dots, you're laughing, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much there. That resonates so much with me, but I got to wrap it up for us here, so I'm going to ask you, is there anything that you want to shout out, anything you want to bring light to or attention to?
I definitely want to shout you guys out for sure, 100%, and I want to shout out the cameraman. Yeah, big shout out to him, you know, and just shout out to everyone that's watching, everyone that's standing out here and whatnot, right? You know, like I said, just go get it, you know, don't be shy and just like keep hustling, you know, and if I can help in any way, I'm open. Just reach out to me, and however I can help, I'll help, you know. But yeah, and shout out to Cowo Campus. So follow Cowo Campus, WOCANPUS. Had to spell it, right? Yeah. And then you can follow me at I am KUKSSINGH, which is I am Kuks Singh. So definitely check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate you.
thanks a lot.
Cool.
All right,
We did it. Yeah.
Oh, we did.